You are now listening to the Key Roger W. Jones Executive Leaders podcast series. Today's episode features David Pekoske. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for access to all of Key's online resources, including this podcast series.
So just want to say thank you to Administrator Pekoske for being with us today. And David, it's just great to see you again. And, I just want to say from the very beginning, we spend a lot of time talking to the winners and the nominators. And the winners, we're always so thrilled for. Public servants are who we are here for. And the winners are terrific. I almost find myself being oddly attracted to the nominators. And the reason I do is because I know that it takes so much time to make these things happen. And so thank you so much for doing that. It is just a tremendous testament, of course, to your leadership. And we couldn't be more excited for you all. Just a few questions for you today, sir. And here's the first one I want to ask you. One thing that Roger Jones always pushed for was education of public leaders. What are your thoughts on lifelong learning for federal executives and those that serve the public? How do you see that?
Yeah, I see lifelong learning as a requirement for any successful executive, and I also see it as something that whenever we speak, because as an executive in public service, your words carry a lot of weight. Whenever you have the chance to speak to a group, just reinforce the importance of lifelong learning and demonstrate it yourself. And part of lifelong learning is to admit when you make mistakes or when you need help. And I always have found that the very best leaders are those that get a lot of input from everybody around them, reason through a decision. But when they make a mistake on something, readily admit that, hey, that didn't go exactly as I hoped it would go, or I wish we had made a different decision, and just evidence that they are in fact learning from the process. And the other thing I think is important is, saying you support lifelong learning, but not putting resources to it is a mixed message. And so, you need to put your money where your mouth is, literally, and invest in the future of public service. And, I think people can be in public service, if you will, in quotes, even when they're not working in government. I felt that when I was not working in government, I was still contributing public service, and I was growing as an individual and as an executive. And so, I think it's just very important to support these programs and to support the attainment of different skill sets by everybody.
Well, thank you. One of the questions that we often get asked as well, we have a tagline in Key, and it's turning good managers into extraordinary leaders. And managers are wonderful. How do you delineate between the manager and the leader? What does that leader look like to you?
Yeah, leader to me looks like a people-focused individual, first and foremost. And I have a set of leadership principles in TSA. It's part of my administrator's intent, which is a document that supplements our strategy. The very first leadership principle in that administrator's intent is caring for our people. I know, and Patrick, from your own professional experience, that whenever you visit an organization, you can tell right away how good the leadership is in an organization. You can tell by the passion that people have for the mission. You can tell by the engagement, and if you look at the FEBS, one of the things that FEBS measures is employee engagement, the Employee Engagement Index. Job of a leader is to make sure that everybody is engaged, everybody is on board. Key and fundamental to that is good, robust communications. And really, if there was ever an opportunity to test leadership and to test communications ability, it was and is during COVID-19. And so, I have really seen some superb leaders in TSA, and Kimberly Walton is absolutely one of our superb leaders. I mean, just think about what it's like to provide support for 64,000 people in a pandemic. And she did all those things: rapid communication, consistent communications, honesty, and really conveying her passion to everybody else and getting everybody else in the tent, if you will.
The leadership that we're talking about, and you said, COVID, what was running through my mind was COVID kind of uncovered, it almost unmasked some amazing leadership. I mean, not that it wasn't there before, but COVID kind of put us into that. Is there anything unique, do you think, David, about the public service and about leading in the public service as opposed to leading in other sectors?
Yeah, there's a lot unique about it, and I've been in other sectors, and so I chose to come back to public service. I chose to come back to the Transportation Security Administration, and one of the key reasons is the impact that you can have as a leader. I think of TSA pre-COVID in terms of the number of passengers that went through our screening process in domestic airports. I mean, some days it was close to 3 million people. And so the impact you have is on the safety and security of those 3 million people. The other impact that you have is you're representing the United States, not just the United States government, but the United States to those 3 million people every single day. I also think from a public perspective, the responsibility is enormous. I look at Kim Walton's position, my position within TSA. We're responsible for the security of the United States transportation system, airports, train stations, over-the-road bus, rail systems, pipelines. And so the responsibility is enormous, and that drives really strong performance, and it drives passion. The other thing I would say about public service that is very much akin to Roger Jones' legacy and to the reputation of the key executive program in American University is you have a unique ability to demonstrate your leadership and your communication skills on scale. There's nothing comparable to it, or very little comparable to it. I think of how easy it is for us to just utter something from TSA, and within hours it's picked up by all the national media. All I have to do is talk about a change to our screening process, and it's picked up by the national media. Or if an incident happens somewhere, you're on the hot seat, and you've got to reassure the public and explain what happened. So I find that challenge exhilarating, and I think people who choose a public service career do as well. I mean, and the final thing I would say, and today is a perfect example of it. In my role as a TSA administrator, I have a convener role, a very unique role as the head of the largest security agency in the world for aviation security. I can convene groups of people. I'm convening a number of our international partners this afternoon, and it's not like, hey, I want us to come together. I want us to talk about what we're all experiencing and some of the things that we need to look at over the horizon. So, I think public service is absolutely unique, and it's incredibly rewarding.
And with that, let me lead into my last question, which is,
Sure.
so you remember those little 8 balls that the little 8 ball, and you flip it upside down.
Right,
and,
right.
you've got an 8 ball in your hand now, but it's a crystal ball. What do you see now as kind of the future of public service leadership? What does it look like to you for those graduate students that I'm teaching, or for those young, 9s and 7s and 9s coming into your organization? What does it look like in the future?
Okay, so that comes up to me as being really bright, because I think the future of public service is incredibly bright in this country. And I just think of what I experience every single day in this position, and that is, and I think sometimes people, this might be a little counterintuitive, but I see significant public appreciation and recognition of the value that public servants provide. I use a couple of surrogate measures for that. I mean, we have outstanding relationships with 2 statutorily required advisory committees, that there's an incredible give and take and an appreciation on the part of all the interests they represent for what we collectively together can do. I look at our industry partners. I mean, the key to our security system is partnerships, not just with TSA and other agencies, but with TSA and air carriers, with TSA and airport operators, with TSA and pipeline operators. And, I just see the value reflected from them in what we do, and really the demand to take action as part of the government, which some people think never happens. The industry doesn't want the government to take action on things. That's really just not the case. I also look at my overseers, the Congress, the House and the Senate, Democrat and Republican, and what they have continued to do is continue to provide us more and more authority. And that to me is a real signal. If they didn't support what you were doing, or didn't see value in what you were doing, you would find your authorities would be reduced gradually over time. I see quite the opposite. The final thing I would say is, we engage in a lot of public-private partnerships with some very big companies, both domestically and internationally. We have aligned interests on a lot of things, and we have a lot of technology development that we want to do together. When I make a call to the CEO of a very large Fortune 500 company, let's say, there's no question that we're going to have that conversation. In other words, I don't get put down to a lower level in the organization. These are conversations that they want to have because big corporations and small corporations and startups want to work with the government, and that's a real sign of the value they place in public service and the role that we play in the public sector.
It's so refreshing to hear. It sounds like with TSA especially, there's a bipartisan commitment to what the mission of the organization is, and that's nice to see. We don't see a whole lot of that. That's a nice thing to see, especially for the traveling public. So well, Administrator Pekoske, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you again. It's just such an honor. I can't wait until we can get you back in the classroom sometime